What can you do in beautiful Hoi An in 3 days? That is exactly the question I'm going to answer in this video as I travel to Vietnam with my father, where we'll share our experience of one of the country's most beautiful cities. Now, there is just no way I could show you everything that this picture-perfect town has to offer in one video, but what I will show you is some of the quintessential sights and experiences, as well as several of the best places to grab a coffee, an insanely delicious banh mi, and a few places to grab dinner that are popular with the locals. I'm even going to show you the delicious regional dish called Khao Lao, and as if that wasn't enough, I'll also share snippets from a day trip along the Hai Van Pass as part of an easy rider tour, because this is one road trip you just cannot miss if you're in the area. Now, let's start this video, and we're going to begin with what I would say is the #1 must-do activity in Hoi An: a sunrise walk around the town to beat the crowds. It's just after 5:30 in the morning, and I've come into Old Town Hoi An just to see what it's like as the city wakes up, and of course to get the town to myself, because the crowds you get here are insane. But I also want to come in and do some street photography, and I thought, you know what, I may as well go and see the Japanese bridge, the most iconic thing about Hoi An, whilst I'm here. And would you guys like to see the Japanese bridge? Would you like to see where it is, what it's like? So this is the Japanese bridge. At least it was. Turns out they're actually doing restoration work to it. I wasn't aware of that until I've gotten here, and it does not look anywhere near complete. But not to worry, I've got my camera, and that's the main reason I'm in here. So I want to go up to the Yellow Wall, one of the famous photography spots of Hoi An, and see what kind of scenes I get, because I've only been here 5 minutes and the city is already starting to wake up. The buzz is growing by the minute, it seems. So yeah, I'm going to put this camera down and get this one out and just see what scenes develop in front of me. The Yellow Wall is literally a stone's throw away, and although one section was washed out when I was here, and this would be a great place for you to take some Instagram-worthy snaps, especially portraits. That being said, these were the only images I managed to snap when I was here. After this, I recommend you do what I did and literally get lost wandering the narrow and serene alleys of the ancient town, because once the crowds start, this town loses all feeling of tranquility, which is to be expected given that it's a tourist town. So I've been out for a few hours now, and I think one of my favourite activities has become walking these alleys, because they're just so beautiful and so full of character, and at every turn there's a different scene. When I was done wandering, I collected my father from our accommodation because it was time for our first activity together: famous cooking class and basket boat tour. But since we love our morning routine, we made time to grab our first of many coffees in Hoi An. So for our first coffee shop, we're here at Hoi An Roastery, and this is going to be the coffee that we measure all other coffees here in Hoi An against. I'm very excited to try the coconut coffee because I haven't had one yet, but I've heard nothing but good things. And of course, Dad here is sticking to the cafe dens. And in case you don't already know, a cafe den is a black coffee, and a cafe den da is a black coffee with ice, which my father thoroughly enjoyed. And I can say the same about my coconut coffee, which was thick, sweet and creamy with little bits of coconut, which made it incredibly refreshing on this hot and humid morning. Other than that, we found Hoi An Roastery to be a great place to grab a coffee based on the high quality coffee at a good price, served in a friendly and relaxed atmosphere. So give it a try for yourself on your visit to Hoi An. Finishing our coffees, we headed to Hoi An Central Market to meet our guide, Anna, from Hoi An Eco Coconut Tours. No matter which company you book with, these tours follow a similar format. First, your guide will take you through the market, where you'll pick out ingredients that you'll later use in your cooking class. Now, this is an experience in itself, especially if you come from countries without wet or dry markets, in which case, I encourage you to relax and embrace the sights, sounds and smells, because it is part of the culture and it is part of the experience. Anna did a great job of showing us the market as well as each ingredient which we would later use, and this section of the tour only lasts about 20 to 30 minutes, and when you're done, your guide will take you to a minibus where you'll make a 10-minute drive to the location of your cookery class. But before all that, you get to take a very special ride in a very special watercraft. Right, Dad, if I told you we're about to do a basket boat tour, what would you think that meant?
Me.
Floating about in a basket.
Let's go find out. Whilst my father's answer wasn't the most profound, it also wasn't wrong, much to his apprehension. With that being said, let me introduce you to Hoi An's famous basket boats. So the reason these boats exist apparently dates back to French colonial times, where the French levied a tax on boats, and to get around it, the Vietnamese created these round basket-shaped boats, and because they're actually termed baskets, they couldn't be taxed, which is pretty ingenious. And this man has no idea what's coming up.
Well, was that like?
Absolutely brilliant. Nearly as good as the motorbike ride, but yeah, good fun.
So we've had our fun now, and I think we're about to go do some crab fishing. What do you think, Dad? You're no stranger to picking a few crabs out of the bushes, are you? What do you say?
Photo.
They're pulling through things legs off.
Oh, yeah!
So I caught a wee crab, but I don't know how I feel about it because they just grab them out of the boat. Because when they grab the meat, they fall in the boat when you bring them inside, and then the person operating the boat lifts it and quite forcefully throws it in a little tub. But yeah, not humane. Thankfully, I later learned that crabs regrow limbs, and after I was done trying to feed my father, it was time for some real food as we hopped off the boat and began our cooking class. Now, for some reason, I didn't record much of the class, but it was honestly so much fun because we used the ingredients we picked up at the market in the morning to make spring rolls from scratch, and when we were done with those, we made one of our favorite Vietnamese dishes, ban zeo, which are savory rice pancakes stuffed with shrimp and bean sprouts. We then made a huge bowl of beef pho before finishing up by making a sweet dessert with mung beans and coconut milk. Everything we made was so delicious, and we were even given the recipes so that we could make the food when we got home. And just like that, 4 hours had passed and the tour had come to an end, and it was time to get dropped off back in Hoi An's ancient town, where we promptly decided that we needed our second coffee of the day. So if you're looking for a coffee with a view, this is probably the best place in Hoi An. This is called FIFO Coffee, and look at the view you get out across this place. We had so much fun at the basket boat and cooking class today, which was really unexpected because it's such a cliche thing to do when you're in Hoi An. I really didn't have high expectations, but Dad really loved it, didn't you?
Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, 100% recommend that for anyone.
Excellent. And I'm the exact same. I was blown away by it. Had so much fun. Anyway, now we're going to get Khao Lao, which is Hoi An's signature noodle dish, and it is, I think it's thick noodles with barbecued pork. Okay, we've got to go. Our grabs here. You won't find Khao Lao outside of Hoi An because the rice noodle component has to be made in a specific process where the rice is first soaked in lye water and mixed with the ashes of a specific tree from the nearby Cham Islands. After soaking, the rice is then ground into flour using water from one specific well in Hoi An, and because of this process, the resulting noodles have a yellow tinge and are beautifully chewy. Khao Lao as a dish consists of these noodles, char siu pork, greens, a meaty broth, and fried crispy lardons, and I would describe the overall taste as barbecuey and absolutely delicious. So do not miss a bowl of Khao Lao on your trip to Hoi An. We just finished our food and now we're heading to the river to see if we can see the lanterns, and then we're going to get some beers, but maybe not too many because tomorrow morning we're getting up to go to the Hai Van Pass on an easy rider tour. So we'll catch you then, if not before. Hopefully I'll get some B-roll shots of the lanterns, and yeah, see you soon. Hoi An is famous for its lanterns, and if you're lucky enough to visit on the 14th day of the lunar month, you'll be able to witness the Lantern Festival, where all the electric lights in the ancient town are shut off and the town is lit solely by lanterns. It's also when you'll be able to witness the iconic scene of hundreds of floating lanterns being released onto the river, but you can release your own floating lantern on any day of the month. After exploring for a little, we found a quiet bar, had some beers and cocktails, and hit the hay because the next morning we were up early for our next must-do activity. Now, who doesn't love a road trip? Well, today we're doing one of the best road trips in all of Vietnam. Today we're going to the Hoi An Pass, Son Tra Peninsula and the Marble Mountains, and we're doing that with Hoi An Adventure Tours.
And their guides are already here, so let's hop on these bikes and get this tour in motion.
Now, you can rent a bike and do a self-drive tour of the same route, but we opted for an easy rider tour because the start of the pass is 40 kilometers from Hoi An, and we just weren't comfortable riding a bike over that distance on Vietnamese roads. And as you'll see later, that was a wise decision. Other than safety, the next major benefit to an easy rider tour was that we were able to sit back, relax and enjoy the ride. And it wasn't long after we left Hoi An that we arrived at our first stop.
So about half an hour after we've got on the bike, we've now arrived at our first stop, which is the Marble Mountains. All right, immediately into a set of God knows how many stairs. Let's see how Dad holds up in this. I'm going to get this ancient old man up this ancient old mountain.
The Marble Mountains are 5 limestone karsts jutting out of an otherwise flat landscape near the city of Da Nang. Each of the peaks were named after the 5 elements in Eastern philosophy, which are metal, wood, water, fire and earth. We climbed the Water Mountain, which is popular with tourists as it's home to over half a dozen caves and many Buddhist shrines, pagodas and towers. The highlight of the mountain is the main cave, which is huge, and I do think the entire complex is worth visiting if you're passing by, especially if you're a Buddhist, but just be prepared for crowds in relatively small spaces. Finishing up at the Marble Mountains, it was back on the bikes for a short trip to our next stop, the Dragon Bridge in Da Nang, which actually breathes fire at 9 p.m. on Saturdays, Sundays and public holidays. But as you can tell, we were visiting in peak daylight hours, so we had to settle for a brief stop to marvel at the design from afar. Then it was finally time to start the Hoi An Pass at the extreme north end of Da Nang.
So in central Vietnam, there are 2 major cities, Hue in the north and Da Nang in the south, and they're separated by this massive mountain in the middle, or mountain range. And the traditional way to get between both cities would have been the Hoi An Pass, which we're driving right now. And in 2005, a tunnel through the mountains to connect both cities was built. But that tunnel is open to all traffic except these tanker lorries, which we've just passed. So something to be aware of if you're coming to do the Hoi An Pass by yourself without a guide or without an easy rider, is that you're going to be coming across these big lumbering oil tankers and you will have to overtake them on corners with oncoming traffic, so it can be dangerous. Just know what you're doing and be confident if you do it.
Okay, we stopped for a coffee at probably one of the most scenic coffee places in all of Vietnam. Look at these views, guys.
Our tour guide Sam. Sam, do you want to say hello?
Hello. Welcome to Hoi An.
It's very good fun, very informative too. Yeah, really recommend taking this guy. So what are you thinking of the tour, Dan?
Absolutely fantastic. Really good fun. It's actually quite fun sitting on behind someone on a motorcycle, which I'm not used to.
You can relax, can't you, when you're on behind someone?
Very much so. You can take in all the views as well. It's just incredible. Just keeps getting better.
After our coffees, it was a short ride to the top of the pass, where on a clear day you'd get beautiful views out across Lang Co Bay, which would be our next stop. Unfortunately for us, we visited on a very hazy day. However, we did enjoy learning about the recently restored Hoi An Gate, which is situated at the top of the pass and was built in the 1800s to protect the imperial city of Hue. At the same site, there are even some old pillboxes from French colonial times, so history buffs will absolutely love it here. Hopping back on the bikes, we began our descent down the northern side of the pass. On the way, we passed the famous switchbacks where many tourists opt to get a photo. Not us though, as we were short on time. But before we knew it, we had reached Lang Co Bay, where we had the option to grab some lunch at a beachside restaurant.
We've just stopped for some lunch in the most beautiful beach, probably in Vietnam. In fact, this whole coastline is full of beaches, but the one we're at right now is called Lang Co Beach, and it's on the north side of the Hoi An Pass. Just check out these views that we got.
After lunch, we had one more stop on the pass before we headed to the Son Tra Peninsula, and this was my absolute favourite stop of the entire tour.
So our guys brought us to this a swimming hole. That's the only way I can describe it. It has a name, I'll put it on the screen, but it's a mountain stream, and you can see everything behind me up there runs off the mountain and forms these pools that you can swim in. Now this one we're at is deep enough to dive in, but then as you go further down the mountain there, they get a bit more shallow. But yeah, we've been having so much fun here and just diving in, just messing about really. But it's the perfect escape if you're coming here in midday to get out of the sun. And yeah, that's what we're going to do right now, is going to go back in here and enjoy our last few minutes, because we're going to head back over the Hoi An Pass, and apparently we're going to the Sun-Trap Peninsula, but it's getting late in the day, so I don't know if that's going to happen, but I hope it will. Anyway, time to go have fun again, and we'll catch up in a bit. So on our way up the pass, I saw a viewpoint where everyone was stopped at, and I asked our guy, could we stop there? And he says, no, we'll stop on the way back. And I'm glad he did, because now there's no one here. And look at this beach. Oh my lord.
So that's the Hoi An Pass done and dusted, but wow, what a drive. Absolutely have to do a tour here, guys, or rent your own bike. It's an absolute must in Vietnam. But now we're heading to the Sun-Trap Peninsula.
It took about 40 minutes to reach the peninsula, and when we arrived, we were greeted by the giant Buddha statue at the Linh Ong Pagoda before we watched a beautiful sunset over Da Nang. Then we had just enough time to explore the pagoda and to meet some monkeys before we got back on the bikes one last time and rode back to Hoi An to finish the tour. And since we'd gone several hours without a coffee, we asked our guides to drop us at the coffee shop in town, which did the best salt and egg coffees.
We're back in Hoi An now, and we left at 8:30 this morning. It is now 7, and the tour was supposed to stop at 5:30. So our guides have done us a solid and still taken us around everything that was billed in the tour itinerary. Dad, what did you think of the tour?
From start to finish, I just can't get words to describe it. It was fantastic. From the minute we sat our asses on the bikes, right through to the first coffee break, to the last coffee break, and everything that was in between.
So we've just finished our Hoi An Pass tour, and we were hanging for some banzai-o, and our guides recommended this place called Banzai-o Hai Dao, just looking at the name there. And in case you know what banzai-o is, it's rice flour pancakes, usually filled with bean sprouts, shrimps, and pork. So we've gone for the combo in this restaurant, which comes with a pork cutlet, a spring roll, and some other kind of meat on a stick, which I assume is pork. But let me just show you what we've all got. We've got the banzai-o themselves, got some form of pork cutlet, the meat on a stick, mystery meat, and the spring rolls themselves. Right, they look delicious. And then as condiments go, we've got some, what I think is fermented cabbage, carrot, and something else. I'm really not sure what's in there, to be honest. I've got our leafy greens as usual, got cucumber, mint, lettuce, and what's that called, that fish? Fish what? Fish leaf. It's not called fish leaf, but Dad's called it fish leaf. And then we've got a really delicious satay sauce. Like, that is amazing. I've tried it just before we made this video. And let's show you how we actually make a banzai-o and eat it.
To make a banzai-o, you basically make a giant spring roll with all your ingredients. So you start with your rice paper and add the banzai-o itself, then add whatever leafy greens and other sides that you like, roll it up nice and snug, dip in your satay sauce, and enjoy. But don't forget the most critical step.
I'd wash down the beer.
The most critical step. But if we didn't have beer, I would probably just drink all of the satay sauce, because that is delicious. But yeah, try banzai-o when you get a chance. It is just beautiful. It's like the ultimate Vietnamese comfort food, I'd say.
And so ended day 2, and the next morning I was up bright and early for a little solo adventure.
So I rented a scooter this morning to come out and do some street photography, and I've ended up near the village of Ban Tak in the coolest coffee shop in the middle of some rice paddies. Check out the scenery.
Ban Tak is about 20 to 30 minutes from Hoi An by motorbike, and I didn't just come here for this coffee shop. You see, in this region of Vietnam, people still practice a centuries-old craft of weaving river reeds into colourful mats, and for some reason I felt that I absolutely needed to get a photo of one of these weavers. So after my coffee, I spent an hour searching the whole village, and the only weaver I found was this adorable old lady sitting on the doorstep of her home. Now, if you know me, you'll know that I absolutely love to use my photography to capture cultures which are different to my own, so capturing these images was an important part of my trip. The lady couldn't speak English, but using gestures I was able to gain her permission for some photos, and because we were in a private setting, An, I was sure to pay her for the privilege. Feeling complete, I left the village and headed back towards Hoi An to Tan Ha, where earlier in the morning I had actually visited the fish market for some sunrise photography and got these shots. This time though, I was here to explore the Pottery village, which is a great escape from the bustling ancient town, and I recommend you make time to visit this place. By this time, we were well into midday, so guess what? It was time for yet another coffee. So I hopped on the bike to Tree Long Coffee, where I had one of the best egg coffees of my entire Vietnam trip. Not only do they do great coffee, but they actually offer classes on how to make all the different kinds of Vietnamese coffees. So be sure to add Tree Long to your Hoi An coffee shop hit list.
We're down to our last few hours here in Hoi An, and we still have quite a lot we want to do. First port of call for right now is to show you two of the places for the best banh mi's. So yeah, let's get on the road and get these banh mi's because we're absolutely starving. I've been up since sunrise and I haven't had a morsel of food, so I'm more than ready for this. So the banh mi shop behind me is called Lo Banh Mi Sum, and it comes recommended from my uncle who lives in Vietnam. From when he visited Hoi An, he apparently asked a taxi driver to drop him one of the best banh mi shops in town, and this is where they took them. So let's get across the road here and see if it's as good as we've been told.
And boy was it good. Da and I both had the mixed banh mi, which was stuffed with egg sauce, vegetables, papaya, cucumber, pork, ham and barbecue chicken. Just look at how beautiful it was, and I promise you it tasted every bit as good as it looked.
And our next banh mi stop is called Madame Can's. She's known as the queen of the banh mi. I think it's one of the more popular banh mi shops here in Hoi An, but nevertheless, we want to try it, and even though people might know it, for those of you who don't know it, it's going to be to your benefit. So because the sun is setting right now and we're pressed for time, we've taken our banh mi's to go. Now, this is pretty much the exact same as what we just had in the last banh mi shop, which is basically a mixed banh mi. You've got everything in pate, chicken, pork, barbecue, egg, and egg sauce, whatever egg sauce is. So yeah, here we go. Alright, both those were actually really delicious, but truth be told, I prefer the first one. There's just more flavour in all the foods together, but it seems like they used the same bakery for the bread because the bread was the exact same, but ultimately I think it's not going to matter. Both are absolutely delicious, but I definitely preferred the first one. So we've had our banh mi's, now we're off to the beach to cast the last of the evening light, and hopefully we'll get some photos at the K Tra, or however it's pronounced, organic village.
So we've come to the Sound of Silence coffee shop here on An Bang Beach, and I'm not a beach person at all, but I have to admit, this is pretty beautiful. It's what you might describe as paradise. You've got this massive long beach that stretches as far as the eye can see in both directions. You've got this terrace here on a slope that overlooks the beach, and you've got what looks like the most calm, swimmable water. I think it's definitely worth adding An Bang Beach to your Hoi An itinerary. And I think probably the best time to come is either early in the morning and catch the sunrise right in front of you, or late in the evening like we have, where the atmosphere is very chilled out. You've got lovely golden light, in fact it's turned into orange light now as the sun is literally just about to set to our left here. And yeah, this is a really great way to end your time in Hoi An, I think. Just relaxing, chilling out, because I think we've done far too much. And I think the optimum time, or rather the minimum time you should be spending in Hoi An is probably 3 days. But if you want to get up early and do some street photography in the markets, or go to some of the outlying villages like I did, I would say probably 4 days minimum is what you want to consider for your Hoi An itinerary. Because if you get up early and do those things, you're going to need a day or at least 2 evenings to recover. And I've certainly felt it today. I've crashed hard. I basically came back and slept from 11 until like 3 o'clock. But that's fine because I missed the midday heat. So yeah, I'm not sure we're going to make it to the vegetable village. I think this is a much better place to end our time in Hoi An and just relax and chill out, because as I said, we've been on the go since we got here, and it's time now to relax and reflect on the past few days. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed watching our time in Hoi An. I hope it's inspired you, and I hope I've shown you a side of Hoi An you might not have seen before. So if you found it useful, or if you enjoyed the video, give me a like and do hit subscribe to catch up with the rest of my Vietnam videos, which will follow this one. Alright, we're going to sit and enjoy our last coffees in Hoi An, and we'll see you in the next one.